Juan Pablo Duarte, from the Dominican Homeland. Born into a Spanish family of humble origins. At the age of 15 he was sent by his parents to England via New York to complete his studies. From there he went to France and later to Spain. In Europe, convulsed at that time by Romanticism, liberalism, nationalism and utopian socialism, he was imbued with the revolutionary environments of the time. Juan Pablo Duarte witnessed the new regimes of freedoms and rights that emerged after the French Revolution. He showed special interest in the changes produced in Germany and France, but above all in the events in Spain and the reforms that the Cortes of Cadiz had tried to introduce. From his stage in Spain it is known that he lived in Barcelona, where it is possible that he studied law. It was then that his political ideology began to take shape, in which nationalism and liberalism merged on a romantic background. Juan Pablo Duarte understood that the Dominican people had their own identity and had the right to political independence. Once this was achieved, and in accordance with liberal thought, the nation had to organize itself on the basis of the institutionalism of representative democracy. In 1833 he returned to his country ready to put these ideas into practice. The old island of Hispaniola, now the island of Santo Domingo, had been colonized by the Spanish, who, with little interest in it, ceded the western half of the island, present-day Haiti, to the French at the end of the 17th century. The independence movements, which began in the 19th century, had suffered numerous ups and downs. In 1821, when Duarte was still a child, José Núñez de Caceres proclaimed the independence of the eastern half of the island, now the Dominican Republic. But the new state was occupied and subdued a year later by Jean-Pierre Boyer, president of Haiti, who had achieved independence from France many years earlier. La Trinitaria, unlike other liberators. Then, Juan Pablo Duarte did not have to fight against a European metropolis to achieve the independence of the former Spanish part of the island, but against Haitian domination. It was within the urban middle class where Duarte's proposals found the greatest echo. But, at that time, almost all the aristocracy and other ruling groups were in agreement with the Haitian regime, which is why it was impossible to obtain their cooperation in the early years. As the movement expanded, Duarte realized that it was essential to create an organization that, following the model of the European societies of the Carbonari, would assume responsibility for directing the activities. Thus arose the Society La Trinitaria, 1838, whose objective was to liberate the country from the dominion of Haiti. The motto of this society was, God, Country and Freedom. Then the La Philantropica Society emerged, which carried out important propaganda work through the representation of theatrical pieces. Meanwhile, President Jean-Pierre Boyer had made himself hugely unpopular by raising taxes, destined for a payment demanded by France to accept Haitian independence. In 1843 Juan Pablo Duarte supported the revolution that managed to overthrow Boyer. But Duarte's goal was the independence of the Spanish part of the island. So he continued his fight after the fall of the president. Persecuted by the new Haitian government, on August 2, 1843 he had to go into exile in Caracas. The First Republic. Despite this, Duarte's independence ideas had permeated and continued to gain adherents, and on February 27, 1844, his followers declared the country's independence. Under the leadership of Francisco del Rosario Sanchez, and after the Haitian garrisons in the capital and other cities capitulated, the independence cause triumphed. Haitians were expelled to the former French part of the island and the current borders between Haiti and the Dominican Republic were formed. On March 14, 1844, Juan Pablo Duarte was received by the new provisional government, the Junta Central Gubernativa, as a national hero and appointed general of the army. The triumph of the independence movement prompted the new Haitian president Charles Erard, 1843 to 1844, to invade the newly created Dominican Republic with an army divided into two corps, one of which penetrated from the north and the other from the south. It fell to Pedro Santana to face the latter and achieve a resounding victory in Azua on March 19. Thus, the central government board ordered Duarte to go to Bani, with a military force organized by Pedro Alejandrino Piña, in order to reach an agreement with Pedro Santana on the strategy to follow against Haiti. As this agreement was not possible, Duarte required from the board the necessary authority to act on his behalf. But the junta was dominated by Tomás Bobadilla, representative together with Santana of the so-called colonialist sector, who considered an independent republic unfeasible and was in favor of submitting to a European metropolis. The junta responded by ordering Juan Pablo Duarte to return with his troops to the capital. The disagreement between the conservative colonialist sector and the liberal and independentista Duarte became evident, and ended with the triumph of the former. Pedro Santana was named the first president of the Dominican Republic, 1844 to 1848, and eliminated the rival faction, declaring traitors and sending Juan Pablo Duarte and his most important followers, including Francisco del Rosario Sanchez and Ramon Mella, into exile. From exile to the Restoration. After a first exile in Hamburg, Juan Pablo Duarte left for the Caribbean island of St. Thomas. He then continued to Venezuela, a country in which he spent 12 years. Little is known of the life of Juan Pablo Duarte during this period. It is very likely that he had no news of the amnesty decree that, in favor of him and his companions, the government of Manuel Jiménez, 1848 to 1849, Santana's successor, had promulgated at the beginning of September 1848. During the First Republic, the Haitians tried numerous times to regain control over the Dominican part of the island, but were defeated time and again. Political power passed to the conservative group of heteros and former French-style Boyarist officials. Thanks to the control of the presidency of the Central Gubernatorial Board by Tomás Bobadilla and of the Liberation Army by General Pedro Santana, who ruled dictatorially in various periods. The alternation in power of Pedro Santana and Buenaventura Baez, a hetero and woodcutter from the southwest of the country, more astute and no less annexationist than the first, characterized this stage. If you knew it, remember it. If you don't know, write it down. If you are not subscribed in this channel, subscribe, so that content like this and others be notified and you become part of our history. Until next time.